air tonight at 6.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. A squad of terrorists infiltrated the United States on a mission to kill the president and his top aides. It sounds like the stuff of a suspense novel, but American security officials tonight are taking the word of an informant seriously, and the #1 target, President Reagan, said today, "You have to be concerned." Jim McManus and Fred Graham have details.
According to government sources, the informant told his story to the FBI, the Secret Service, and the Central Intelligence Agency, that he once helped train international hit squads, assassination teams in Libya, that he helped develop detailed plans for attacking President Reagan and other U.S. government officials. And he said a hit squad of 10 men slipped into the United States last weekend to carry out those plans. He offered a list of names, no descriptions, no port of entry. Sources told CBS News that U.S. agents were skeptical, even though the man's story matched parts of other intelligence reports. They tried to tear his story apart, resorted to a lie detector, and finally decided to believe him. Even the part about a possible handheld missile attack on Air Force One, or the far more vulnerable White House helicopters used frequently for trips from the White House to Andrews Air Force Base, Camp David, and elsewhere. This is a Soviet-made shoulder-launched missile available in Libya. Like its U.S. counterpart, it can be fired by one man, flies faster than sound, and can bring down an aircraft at altitudes up to 5,000 feet, up to 2 miles away. The Air Force recently installed a device aboard Air Force One to warn the president's pilot if the White House jet comes under missile attack. U.S. officials told CBS News that federal agencies have launched a nationwide search for the alleged ring of assassins. These officials say that so far they have not confirmed any details of the informant's story and that he is now in protective custody somewhere outside the United States. But they say there is no reason to doubt that trained assassins could slip into the United States carrying sophisticated weapons and plans to kill the president. Jim McManus, CBS News, Washington.
Security agencies here are in the uncomfortable position of not knowing whether the assassination story is true, yet having to take extreme precautions in case it is.
There has been heightened vigilance at border crossing points such as Detroit for several weeks, but today as before, the results were routine. The result is that the FBI is trying to check every possible move or contact that a Libyan hit squad might make, yet so far no corroborating facts of the informant's story have reportedly been found. With so many high-level persons potentially at risk, security was visible on all sides. A SWAT team was seen on the White House roof. President Reagan was asked if he was concerned.
Well, obviously, you have to be concerned about everyone and all the people that have been named in this.
Have you taken any action against Gaddafi? Have you tried to contact Libyan leader Gaddafi to tell him of your concern, or what are we saying to Libya?
Oh, I think he figures that I'm concerned. But no, and as you know, I hope you'll understand, we don't talk about security measures and situations of this kind, so.
But you are taking them seriously.
I think you have to. I think it's safe to say that in any security case, even sometimes when security gets what they think is a crank call, why they can't take that for granted.
The new chief of the Secret Service was sworn in, John Simpson, and immediately began to say no comment. FBI Director William Webster in Chicago was almost as non-committal.
Any time that we or any of the other law enforcement or intelligence units of the intelligence community in this country have information that has a potential impact upon the safety of the president or other government leaders, we take it very seriously.
When Nancy Reagan spoke at a Washington hotel, guests were marched through metal detectors and had their bags searched for weapons. Vice President Bush traveled in a protected motorcade twice the length of his usual entourage. Secret Service cars followed this morning as limousines picked up White House aides Meese, Baker, and Deaver, and security agents hovered closer to the president's daughter Maureen in California. The Senate Intelligence Committee has not been briefed on the situation, but member John Chafee had strong feelings.
Short of outright war, this is about as objectionable as one could find. It seems like straight out of some Forsyth tale of Day of the Jackal.
Even with all the uncertainties about this assassination story, one high official said, "I consider the threat deadly serious." Fred Graham, CBS News, Washington.
Security sources in Lebanon say they've uncovered a plot by Libyan gunmen to assassinate American envoy Philip Habib during a visit to Beirut next week. The sources said U.S. officials have been notified. The defense argued that Gene Tafoya was working for the CIA when he shot a Libyan student at Colorado State University last year. The prosecution claimed Tafoya was in league with Edwin Wilson, the fugitive CIA agent who lives in Libya. Today, as Gary Shepard reports, there was a verdict. The defense called it a major victory. The victim called it shocking.
Gene Tafoya was returned to the courtroom this afternoon to hear the jury's verdict after it had deliberated for more than 17 hours. The panel of 3 men and 9 women found the former Green Beret not guilty of attempted first-degree murder, but convicted him of third-degree assault and conspiracy, 2 misdemeanor offenses. Tafoya, who claimed he was working for the Central Intelligence Agency, had been accused of being a paid assassin hired by the Libyan government to murder Libyan dissident Faisal Zaghali. Zaghali was shot twice in the head 13 months ago, but recovered.
Yes, I'm terribly shocked. I think that there is some hidden hand behind this whole goddamn trial. And I think the decision was prejudice. The defense had not even one single evidence to support his theory. And this is supposedly a system that fights terrorism. This encourages terrorism.
You believe Tafoya was working for the CIA?
No.
No. Did you believe he was working for the Libyan government, Gaddafi?
Personally, yes.
What did you make of the prosecution's attempt to link Tafoya to Edwin Wilson?
I feel there may have been a link there, but again, I'm not sure where Edmund Wilson fits in.
Did you want
in the
more
chain.
information on Wilson at this trial?
I would have liked to ask a lot more questions than either party asked.
After the verdict, Gene Tafoya's bail was reduced from $500,000 to $5,000, and he was returned to the county jail until the bail is posted. Gene Tafoya faces a maximum sentence of 2 years in prison as a result of his conviction on the lesser offenses. Sentencing has been scheduled for January the 5th. Gary Shepard, CBS News, Fort Collins, Colorado.
President Reagan today signed an executive order expanding the authority of the CIA to investigate Americans both abroad and at home. Although the new guidelines permit domestic undercover activities, Mr. Reagan said they do not authorize violation of the constitutional rights and liberties of any U.S. citizen.
Some job. Standing all day, and now I've got hemorrhoids.
Better not neglect them.
I was hoping they'd go away.
When I get a flare-up, Preparation H often gives me fast temporary relief from pain and itch. It's recommended by doctors. And Preparation H helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues.
I'll try Prep H.
Ready for the big sale today?
Thanks to Preparation H.
Doctor recommended Preparation H. Relieves pain and itch, even helps shrink swelling.
Whirlpool is about to show you something in appliance quality you may never have seen before. A refrigerator that monitors itself to help protect your food. A microwave oven that uses a built-in computer to simplify your cooking. A dishwasher you can program to start hours later. And a laundry pair with electronic controls for today's fabrics. Whirlpool has created its first family of appliances with solid state to give you the quality of tomorrow's technology today.
The Labor Department reported today that the nation's unemployment rate jumped 0.4% last month, up to 8.4. That's the highest jobless rate since October 1975, during the Ford administration, when the nation was struggling back from its worst recession since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Officials said that even with the approach of the Christmas season, the unemployment rate increased by 484,000 for the month of November, as merchants hired fewer pre-holiday workers than usual. Ray Brady looks at the new jobless figures President Reagan called a very great tragedy.
There are now 9 million Americans without jobs, 1.5 million more unemployed than just 5 months ago, an increase of 20% in that period. Even among retailers, a group that usually hires at this time of year, there was more unemployment. Adult men are a key group of workers, usually married, supporting families. Over this past month, their unemployment rate has gone from 6.7 to 7.2%, nearly a post-World War II high. Among adult women, it went from 7 to 7.3%. With blue-collar workers, the rate rose from 11 to 11.8%, and among construction workers, joblessness stands at a high 18.2%. Among blacks, up from 16.7 to 16.8%. Unemployment among minority youths dipped a bit, but from 42.9% to a still staggering 41.3%. The figures brought strong criticism of the administration's economic policy.
The president promised that his economic plan would bring jobs, jobs, and more jobs. Instead, it has brought recession, recession, and more recession.
By bringing down the inflation rates, you cause unemployment. I think it's been very deliberate, and there's no question that you have to put the blame, in my opinion, on the administration and on the President of the United States.
But President Reagan says his current economic policies will bring jobs.
This is one of the reasons for the economic program, is to restore our productivity and our ability to compete in the world market so that these people can be put back to work.
The administration's economic program seems sure to come under more fire, because all indications are this will be a month marked by plant closings and short work weeks, with many of those coming just before the Christmas holidays. Ray Brady, CBS News, Washington.
What do you got in there, John? This was the last payday at Enrico Steel outside Chicago. The plant is shutting down today for good. Once there were 375 workers here. The last 50 got their goodbye checks and a handshake this morning.
Well, it's a sad situation, but what are you going to do? The profit isn't there, so we have to, they have to close up, I would imagine.
The workers at this International Harvester plant just down the road are more fortunate. Their factory will reopen after a seasonal shutdown, but this year the shutdown is early, just before Christmas.
I think it stinks. I have a pretty large family, so it's a lot of cutting back.
These are hard times for blue-collar workers. At this auto parts company in Indiana, they used to load 60 rail cars a day. Today, they loaded 4. After 24 years with the company, Carl Faust is out of a job.
And the plants are shutting down, and them is not shutting down, they're laying off. And my age, it's just hard to get a job, and you go out and nobody wants you.
The unemployment epidemic is spreading economic malaise among the Hispanic community in the Miami area. Marta Cruz has lost the garment industry job she held for 8 years.
Yeah, I've just been looking for 2 weeks. There's nothing, you know, and everybody saying, okay, I'm going to call you, but, you know.
Teenage unemployment is at its highest level ever. Californian Sean Dowling has been looking for work for a year.
It's hard out there because if you are 18, you can't get a break. And no one wants to train you, and if you don't have experience, you're out of luck.
Even the nation's retail stores, traditionally a source of holiday season jobs, are not hiring because fewer people are buying. Rochelle Morgan knows. She's been looking.
But they would tell me that either they're not hiring or they're all full, and that to come back or call back later. And then when I do, they're telling me they're all filled up.
Reagan administration forecasters fear unemployment will get even worse in the coming months, but they predict a mid-year turnaround and a much improved economy by Christmas time next year. A consolation, perhaps, for some of the 9 million jobless Americans and their families. Richard Wagner, CBS News, New York. President Reagan and Republican congressional leaders worked out a compromise today on the next round of budget cuts, setting the total non-military reduction at $4 billion. The White House said this would go halfway toward the request Mr. Reagan made in September. It remains to be seen whether Congress will go along.
All over the world, beautiful women know that beautiful skin begins with good cleansing. That's why all over the world, more women cleanse with this cleansing cream than any other. It's a hypoallergenic, non-drying, deep cleaning cleansing cream. It's Pond's Cold Cream. And it helps make more women beautiful than any other cleansing cream in the world.
This is Polaroid's new Sun camera, a new system with the fastest color print film made, 600 speed. But it needs one more thing to turn bad light into good pictures.
What's that?
A piece of the sun.
Daddy long legs.
There, a piece of the sun does it.
Turn this bad light into a good picture.
Sure, you use this on every shot. You see, you've never been so sure of an instant picture.
Lovely. Now you just reach up.
Well, don't waste it.
You've never been so sure.
160 years ago, President James Monroe warned foreign powers to keep their hands off of all of the Americas or face the consequences. There were echoes of that famous Monroe Doctrine today in the warnings of Alexander Haig to the Organization of American States. As Robert Pierpoint tells us, Secretary Haig had one particular country in mind.
Secretary Haig outlined to the OAS delegates the recent military buildup in Nicaragua, citing at least 1,500 Cuban military advisors and preparations for importing Soviet-built MiG jets.
The United States is prepared to join others in doing whatever is prudent and necessary to prevent any country in Central America from becoming the platform of terror and war in the region.
The hope is that by mobilizing economic, political, and even military forces in a cooperative anti-communist effort, the tragedy Haig foresees can be averted.
Since 1978, Cuba, with the support of the Soviet Union, has embarked on a systematic campaign of increasing interference against its neighbors. Havana calls the leaders of violent opposition groups together, forges unity pacts among them, trains their men, provides their arms, and sends them back to mount a violent change to legitimate governments.
However, there is a real question whether this rather disparate group in the OAS, representing vastly different ideologies from democracies to dictatorships, can agree on any cooperative action. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News, St. Lucia.
There appeared today in the newspaper Izvestia the first official mention of the two-week hunger strike by dissident scientist Andrei Sakharov and his wife. It was to say that both have been hospitalized in the city of Gorky, where they live in exile. This is film of Sakharov last month, smuggled out of the Soviet Union, in which he explains the reasons for the strike. Sakharov said he and his wife are pressing demands that their daughter-in-law be allowed to leave the Soviet Union to join her husband, who is their stepson, in the United States. The daughter-in-law said today that she fears the Sakharovs are being force-fed.
What do hospitals use for relief of constipation? 9 out of 10 hospitals use gentle, dependable milk of magnesia. That's what comes in this bottle of Phillips. Most doctors agree milk of magnesia is gentler than the ingredient in both these laxatives, and unlike bulk laxatives that can take days to work, Phillips works dependably, usually overnight. Remember, 9 out of 10 hospitals use milk of magnesia, so get Phillips regular mint or convenient mint tablets.
Welcome to the Kmart Gift Gallery, where Kmart proudly presents their stunning collection of fine ladies' fleece robes, on sale and in time for the holiday season. Beautiful robes of soft, cozy Celanese Arnell, only $13. Choose her style, a sensational snap, an attractive zipper, a warm wrap in all her favorite colors. The selection is as tremendous as the price, just $13. But hurry, at these prices they won't last long. On sale through Saturday at Kmart, the Christmas saving place.
6 miners were trapped 500 feet below ground at a coal mine cave-in today near Burgoo, West Virginia. Rescue workers who pickaxed their way through the rubble found 1 man dead, 3 others injured. Miners were freed, and tonight rescue teams are digging frantically to reach the other 2 trapped men. Whether they support or oppose proposed cuts in so-called entitlement programs, officials generally agree that the Social Security system does have financial problems. And as Eric Engberg reports, part of those problems are of the government's own making.
The federal money machine, moving benefits checks from here to there, is capable of overlooking such obvious facts of life as death. Last year, when Marie Finnan's mother died in Texas, she notified Social Security to stop sending the monthly benefit.
I was amazed to see that even after a year I was still receiving the checks. I felt like notifying them by phone, filling out the appropriate forms, sending in the death certificate. I felt that that was sufficient.
When government agents finally collected the checks, they left 16 receipts, one for every month of erroneous payment.
I'm just assuming that they have some problems in the system.
They do.
It was somewhere between $60 and $100 million in benefits went out to people that were not entitled to them because of the fact that they were already dead.
The error was uncovered through a computer cross-check of federal records. In government speak, the Death Determination Project. It found 8,500 people listed as deceased in Medicare files who were still on the Social Security rolls. Officials suspect some of this was fraud, but they put most of the blame on their own system. Families of many of the dead recipients had not even cashed the checks.
They just somehow had the faith that Uncle Sam would show up someday. And we came in, many of them weren't very surprised at all. They'd say, well, I'm glad to see you finally got here.
The inspectors general of the federal agencies, with barking orders from the president to be meaner than junkyard dogs, planned to get their computers talking to each other about other money matters. When they checked the black lung benefits program, they found that a death in a coal miner's family can be reported to Social Security and never reach the officials sending out the black lung checks. Millions of dollars in overpayments were made because the government knew but didn't know that it knew about the deaths. But computer sleuthing has limits. Health and Human Services watchdogs found, to their chagrin, that 25% of the people listed as dead on computerized records they were using to run cross-checks were in fact alive. The blunder was traced to the government form hospitals send to Medicare, on which the important clerical line dividing those released from those deceased was too easy to cross. That form is being redesigned, and humans are being used to double-check the records in the computers.
A computer can find you, but it can't make you pay. The Veterans Administration says $37 million of its bad debt is money owed by people who now work for the government. The computer traced 66,000 of them. 7,000 were employees of the VA. But legally, the government can't collect a debt of this type from a worker's paycheck. So Uncle Sam is doing what the department stores do, sending out a letter that bears the phrase, "Our records indicate," and threatens to notify the boss. Not the president, but someone. The letter helpfully adds, "A self-addressed envelope is enclosed for your use." Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
In a new book, Patricia Hearst Shaw, the kidnapped newspaper heiress who served a term for bank robbery, says she took part in 2 other bank robberies and helped plant 3 pipe bombs. She says that after she was kidnapped in 1974 by a terrorist group calling itself the Symbionese Liberation Army, she was forced to take part in the San Francisco bank robbery, for which she was later convicted. But when 6 terrorists died in a fire and shootout with Los Angeles police, Shaw says she firmly believed authorities would shoot me on sight. She added, quote, "Once I had been a kidnap victim, now I was a hunted criminal." She said she later drove a getaway car from a Sacramento bank robbery in which a 42-year-old mother of 4 was killed. Actor Dana Andrews, who is recovering from alcoholism, today praised the press for reporting the role of alcohol in the accidental deaths of William Holden and Natalie Wood. Andrews, a member of the advisory board of the National Council on Alcoholism, said, "There is every likelihood Bill and Natalie would be alive today if it were not for alcohol, and that should not, cannot be ignored."
Of all the breakfast cereals on the market today, over 100 of them altogether, only a very few are high nutrition cereals. New Buckwheats is one of them. And among the high nutrition cereals, only Buckwheats has a great new touch of honey taste.
Mmm, nice touch.
So, for high nutrition and great taste, New Buckwheats, the only high nutrition cereal with a touch of honey taste.
The city of San Francisco isn't far from California's famous wine country. So, naturally, San Franciscans really know their wines. And the white wine they drink most is Almaden Mountain Chablis. In fact, they buy more Almaden Mountain Chablis than Taylor, California Cellars and Inglenook Chablis combined. Take home a bottle of Almaden Mountain Chablis and find out for yourself why it's San Francisco's favorite white wine.
To Americans, she looks Chinese. To the Chinese, this child of a wartime love looks American. She never knew her father, and all she wants now, as we hear from Bruce Dunning in China, is to find her other family.
Her name is Virginia Papacek. She has lived all her life in China. She speaks almost no English, but she is half American. She is an accountant, her husband a machinery repairman. She has begun telling their two sons about their American grandfather. During World War II, Kunming was the headquarters for the famed U.S. 14th Air Force, whose pilots bombed Japanese armies all over the country and flew the hump, bringing vital supplies over the Himalayas to beleaguered China. 1944, American pilot John Papacek meets Aloise Shi. They fall in love. 1945, they marry in Kunming. Virginia is born August 15, 1946, but 5 months later, Papacek is killed in a plane crash. As a child, Virginia played often in this Kunming Park, where her grandfather was a supervisor. Despite the two countries' enmity, this Chinese grandparent taught her to be proud of her father and his homeland.
I
do not resent the fact that I am a little foreigner. I feel the American blood in my body. When I fill out the school enrollment form, I wrote down my father's nationality as American.
Authorities here carefully supervised her meeting with CBS News, so politically sensitive are individual Chinese dealings with Americans. In 1966, Red Guards seized all the mementos of her father. Only after U.S. diplomatic recognition, 13 years later, were a few tattered photos and papers returned.
My father died on duty when I was 5 months old. I never saw him, but he now often appears in my dreams, and I always see his image from the photographs.
Her American family she knows only from the aging photos, but she wants to visit her other homeland to tell them all that John Papacek has two fine grandsons, and that she always revered the father she never knew.
I love my father.
Bruce Dunning, CBS News, Kunming, China.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Friday. Bob Schieffer will be here tomorrow. Dan Rather reporting from New York, and hoping you have a good weekend.
Coming, madam. Tea, toast, a pat of parquet.
Butter. Butter.
No. Madam uses only parquet, margarine.
Butter.
Coming, madam. You are parquet.
Butter.
Oh, my. Light. Creamy. Good heavens. You are butter.
Parquet.
Parquet margarine from Kraft. The flavor says
butter.
In the mountains of southern Colombia, for centuries the cloth has been woven by hand. It is not the fastest way, but it is part of the heritage. The same dedication to heritage that has been passed to Juan Valdez. He picks the Colombian coffee as it has been picked for centuries, by hand, bean by bean, only at the moment when it is best. It is no surprise that a country so rich with tradition grows the richest coffee in the world.
From around the world, and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Tomorrow, get into the spirit as the Kentucky Wildcats set their sights on the national title and challenge the Ohio State Buckeyes in NCAA basketball here on CBS Sports.
This is CBS.
Police supervisors have won recognition of a new union-type bargaining group after promising the mayor they would never strike. That story coming up next on Eyewitness News.
The service has pace, explosive power. Vitas Gerulaitis, Roscoe Tanner. Their tournament play is bold, flawless, in performance, endurance, timing. Their style is center court, triumphant, like their timepiece, the Rolex Day Date.